Hello and welcome to Pokemon TCG Center. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or like us on Facebook from now on. And you can also check the CCG Castle, our official store, who sell the Pokemon cards and merchandise for really nice prices. And you can find the great deals each month. And we also provide you discount codes on your purchases. So also with every purchases, you're getting the points, and with that points, you can redeem them in the future for some discounts or something other. And we also have the latest videos and deck coverage for the Pokemon TCG, and we also do some unboxing, and we will also do a Japanese unboxing in the future. So don't forget to click the YouTube, subscribe, and like us on Facebook so you can stay on with us and the future videos.
Depend on a lot. I'm interested to see who's going to get their evolution card out first. If Henry can get that Flygon out first, start generating damage with Sand Slammer before Garbodor comes out to shut off his abilities, that'll be a big difference.
Now, we were unable to see both players' hands right as they begun. However, just seeing that Darrell has two Pokemon in play, it's very curious to see whether or not he has that Duskull on the bench right to start.
Yeah, Henry's goal is going to be to get a lot of basic Pokemon out very quickly. He wants his Trapinch, his Shelmet, and his Duskull out as soon as possible, so he can have them in play for a turn to evolve them. And then once he starts evolving them, the deck just kind of explodes, and we'll see what happens from there.
All right, so we are off, and we actually see two of those big mentioned EX Pokemon on the left side. We have Yveltal EX and Darkrai EX. Steering across a Shelmet, ready to become an Exilgor, and a Duskull, ready to become a Dusknoir.
Yeah, we do see a Tropical Beach coming down from Henry. This is a very big card. It's actually a stadium card that allows you to draw until you have 7 cards in your hand and it ends your turn. But it has great synergy with Flygon since you don't have to attack with Flygon. You basically just draw until you have 7 and then you deal damage. It's an excellent combo.
So once again, we're seeing a very atypical deck. Normally, Pokemon is all about attaching energies and attacking, whereas Flygon is all about abusing abilities and using anything you can to help you in a situation where you don't necessarily have to attack. Tropical Beach, definitely one of them.
Yeah, now we see Henry using an Ultra Ball here. He's probably going to search for a Trapinch to get that into play. He really wants to get a Flygon in play quickly, but he's just taking his time to search through his deck, see that any crucial cards aren't in those prize cards, so that he can see what he has to work with.
Now, one of the things I've seen from Henry Pryor when he does play is typically he is a very fast player. Most players probably take a good minute or so looking through their deck, but he is near autonomous when it comes to this. So he plays an end card that allows both players to shuffle their hands. It doesn't allow it, forces both players to shuffle their hand back into their deck and draw a card for each prize card that they've taken.
Right, so right now both players have 6 prize cards, so they'll be drawing 6. This is a very strong opening hand from Henry. Not only will he be able to play a supporter, he gets a lot of basic Pokemon down, he's going to be able to end his turn with a Tropical Beach as well, so a lot of cards being drawn here on this first turn.
He's drawing, I believe I saw an Ultra Ball in hand, and another Trapinch. So this is exactly what you want as you're starting with Henry.
Yeah, if you're Darrell, you do not want to see this. This is just a lot of stuff flying at you very quickly, and he's going to have to respond very quickly if he wants to stay in this game.
Right, and so we did see that Tropical Beach. He drew, and then the turn is over. Now it is Darrell's turn to turn things around with an Ultra Ball of his own. So Ultra Ball, very interesting card. It's very powerful in that while you do have to discard 2 cards out of your hand, you can search your deck for any kind of Pokemon. Most of the Pokeball cards around don't have that kind of universal power.
Yeah, it is pretty costly discarding those 2 cards. We did see he had to throw away 2 supporter cards just to use that Ultra Ball, so that may end up hurting him later, and we'll have to see what he tries to grab here.
So Darrell's searching through the deck, and as always, because Pokemon, simply being good at the game and the mechanics doesn't necessarily mean that you've mastered all the matchups.
Right, now we did see a Tropical Beach, and the Trubbish actually is in his hand, so he does have that. I have to wonder if Garbodor is prized, or maybe he's just kind of waiting, picking a spot to put down that Garbodor.
So Henry already has that double colorless and Excelgor in play, so he can use his deck and cover attack, paralyze, and poison his opponent, and he shuffles the Excelgor back into his deck.
All right, we see a Skylar for a rare candy. That means we're having a big turn here. Flygon will probably hit the field, and Henry is going to have a perfect start here. Turn 2 deck and cover into a Flygon.
Yeah.
That's as strong as you can get.
You really can't ask for more, and while you definitely do like the Dusknoir, you don't necessarily need it right away.
Right, now it looks like Henry's actually playing a more conservative approach. He's saying, you know what, I don't need to deck and cover right now. I know Darrell probably can't knock out my Flygon this turn, So I'm just going to use Tropical Beach, get some damage on board, and just be happy to draw some more cards.
Right, and what you guys just saw was Flygon activated his ability Sand Slammer. In between each turn, you just drop 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. So it really limits them to the amount that you want to play.
Yeah, that'll be a big thing too. So far, we only see 2 benched Pokemon. We'll see it if he decides to bench more of them, because the more Pokemon you do put down, the more damage you take, and eventually Dusknoir's Sinister Hand can move those all around and just kind of target down your big threats.
So far, we're seeing a lot of offensive capability. We see the Yveltal EX. He's got 2 energy. He has a muscle band attached, which increases each of your attacks by 20 damage. And he also just played a Hypnotoxic Laser.
Yeah, that Hypnotoxic Laser is actually going to poison that Flygon. So in between turns, it'll take 10 damage. I don't believe he'll be able to get a knockout this turn. He doesn't have quite enough energy. So that Flygon will survive. We'll have some more damage being accumulated with that Sand Slammer. And interestingly enough, we did see Darrell decided not to bench that Trubbish. So maybe that Garbodor is prized, or both of them.
Right, and as we saw, if you can't evolve, it really doesn't matter whether you have the Trubbish down. In fact, with it down, it's just giving Sand Slammer more fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it seems like he's just opted for the Y-ball, dropped the damage, and it's interesting. Both of just Henry's Pokemon is now poisoned.
Right.
He did not actually opt to use the Excelgor last turn.
Yeah, so we have the Evil Ball there for 80 damage, and then we see the Startling Megaphone. That's actually going to discard all 3 Pokemon tools on Darrell's board. That's a big play there. One of the big things here is whether or not Yveltal EX can knock out Flygon in 1 hit, because every turn it survives, that's just more damage that gets piled up.
Correct. And one very interesting thing about the Flygon deck is because you don't run many energies, you can use the card Max Potion to just simply heal one completely.
Yeah, I believe Henry does play 2 copies of Max Potion in his list, so we'll have to see if he can draw into one here and keep that Flygon alive even longer.
So far, we're seeing yet another N. Now, typically, N can be a very strong late-game card because you can draw cards. If you're down, your opponent's drawing less for each prize that they've taken. But even in the early game, just shuffling and drawing 6 is nothing to laugh at.
Yeah, I think a lot of games get decided by N because it's great early on to fill up your hand, and then late in the game, we're going to see it probably put someone down to 1 card, and limiting your opponent's options like that is just a huge, huge advantage.
So looking at Henry's hand, I see yet another rare candy in Ultra Ball. So if he wants to, he can opt to just replace his current Flygon with one on the bench, just filling it back up. He has another Shelmet, so he could have yet a stream of Excelgors if he wants to. No Max Potion, but all the search options he wants.
He has actually a lot of options here. He has a level ball here. He'll be able to search for a Pokemon with 90 HP or less, so that can be any of his basic Pokemon, basically. And then looks like he's going for another Trapinch. So we'll see. He has a Float Stone in hand, I saw as well, so he could retreat to Excelgor this turn if he wanted to. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and because he just did play that Startling Megaphone, that Keldeo, while it has the ability to rush in and replace a Pokemon, which resolves any special conditions that you've got, can remove the paralysis, he did just lose the ability for the free retreat.
Right. Now, fortunately, we do have Darkrai EX on the bench as well. So if we just see a Darkness energy go onto that Keldeo EX, it gets the free retreat from Darkrai's Dark Cloak, so we can just rush in and retreat just like that again.
And so, interestingly, we do not see any use of the rare candy. Henry's going to hold it, maybe perhaps for a Dusknoir in the future, for another Flygon. As long as his opponent doesn't have an N, he can just hold on to those resources.
Yeah, I think he's actually pretty happy with his situation right now. He hasn't really given up any early prizes. That's the biggest thing here. Normally, this Yveltal EX can do lots of damage early on. We see basics go down very quickly, but he's survived the first few turns without giving up any prizes.
Correct. Now, that one unfortunate act did happen. There was yet another N. I believe it's the only supporter we've seen outside of the Colress early in the game. Lots of early game ends, which does help some of these players survive in the late game. However, it does mean Henry loses that rare candy option.
Right. So it looks like we're going to see the Y Cyclone. We're going to move an energy down to the bench, Darkrai, and Darrell will be the one who takes the first prize.
So off he goes. He drew a Dark Patch off of that, a classic acceleration card to get extra energy onto a Dark Pokemon on the bench. And Henry has a lot of choices.
Yeah, it looks like this may be the turn he'll finally use Excelgor's Deck and Cover. I mean, it's been there the whole time. He's just kind of been waiting for the right moment to use it. And we do see a Skylar for another rare candy. So here we go, more Stage 2 Pokemon coming.
Even losing that rare candy out of the N, you just run so many different ways to get that rare candy back. And we're seeing yet another Flygon on the bench.
Yeah, now we do see another level ball. Henry plays a lot of these searching cards to be able to find the Pokemon he needs for the right situation. And it looks like we're getting Dusclops now. So it looks like he's finally saying, time to get Dusknoir, time to use that Sinister Hand to move the damage to that Evoltal EX that's building up all those energy.
Absolutely. Now, it doesn't seem that impressive so far. You look at Henry's side, you just see like 3, 3, 3. Doesn't seem like a lot, but once you get Dusknoir out, you get the incredible ability to move your opponent's damage as you like.
Yeah. It doesn't look like much. I mean, Evoltal EX did as much damage as on Darrell's board in one attack, and it's taken Henry, like 3 turns to finally build up enough damage. But now here we go. There's that deck and cover, 50, and then poison and paralysis, and then 10 more from the Sand Slammer. So this is when it starts to add up.
Right. Once you have enough damage in the field, it is very easy to move it around, knock out these EX Pokemon for 2 prizes instead of 1, and Henry can definitely turn this quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an exciting first game here in the top 16 of the U.S. National Championships, and we'll see, can Darrell get out of that paralysis? It looks like he will be able to, but can he get a knockout on that Flygon? That's the bigger thing.
Correct. And real quick, I do want to remind you guys, if you're enjoying this match and would like to see more similar trading card game streams, I really encourage you guys to click that purple follow button on the Twitch stream. You can also follow us on Pokemon or twitter.com/Pokemon. You can subscribe to youtube.com/Pokemon. We're trying to get all kinds of new ways to show you guys this content and get you guys the highest level of play possible.
Absolutely, and this is the highest level of play right here. We have some of the best players in the world here at the U.S. National Championships. We have hundreds and hundreds of players here showing up in all divisions, and I mean, this is just an example of one of these exciting matches we have.
So Darrell, I noticed he attached the Darkness Energy to his benched Keldeo, so if he does rush in, like you said, in combination with Darkrai's Dark Cloak, he can retreat for free, so he can remove that paralysis condition.
Yeah, and now we see a very big game changer here. That Burbank City Gym, that provides 2 additional damage counters on a poison Pokemon in between turn. So now we saw Darrell did play that Hypnotoxic Laser, which poisoned Henry's Flygon. So now he'll be taking 3 damage counters in between turns instead of 1. But it's kind of a double-edged sword because when Excelgor uses Deck and Cover, now Darrell will also take additional damage from that poison.
Now, we just saw him play his Dowsing Machine. It's an A-Spec card, a very powerful item card that can only be played 1 copy in a deck. He used that to recycle that Muscle Band, so now we see the Rush-In, the free retreat with Dark Cloak. He has the active Yveltal with that poison damage, the Muscle Band, and his attack. He should be able to knock out this Flygon clean.
Absolutely. We see he can use Y Cyclone here for 110 damage with that Muscle Band, and then the 3 damage counters between the Poison and the Burbank City Gym will finish off Flygon. But it's interesting to note, Sand Slammer will activate, so we'll still get that additional damage in between turns before the Flygon goes down.
Correct. So he at least does go down swinging. Now, one interesting thing right now I see in Darrell's hand is he actually does have the Garbodor.
Wow. So I guess he's just deciding, I don't even need this. I'm just going to use my big basic Pokemon and knock you out. My Pokemon are better.
That's the power of the EXs.
Yeah, we do see a Float Stone going on to the Vibrava here. And we see Dowsing Machine. It's been a very popular A-Spec card. Just allows you to get back any trainer card from your discard pile. And it looks like it's going to be N here.
And with N, now we're sort of starting to see some of its mid-game, late-game viability. With both players shuffling their hands into their deck, Henry's still getting those 6 prize cards that he's been getting each time off his draw, while Darrell is only going to get 4.
Yeah, now this will be a big turn for Henry. He's going to need to draw a few things here. I think the biggest one will be that Dusknoir. And looks like he's drawn plenty of options to work with.
He's got an Ultra Ball if he wants Dusknoir. He has the Excelgor Double. He has a Flygon. He has a lot of options here right now.
He even drew another Tropical Beach if he wants to take that route. I mean, pretty much everything he could have asked for is in these 6 cards.
That was certainly a good pick. Now, if he does go to opt for the Ultra Ball, he will have to discard. So it's certainly tough. You're looking at your hand. When all the cards are good, it's hard to decide what to toss.
Absolutely, and we'll have to see what route he goes on. If he just goes for Dusknoir and decides to use that Tropical Beach and fill up his hand, he could actually still move damage to the Yveltal EX and knock it out with Sand Slammer, and maybe just save the Excelgor for a later time. So we'll have to see if he wants to be aggressive here, and knock out with the Excelgor, or just use the Tropical Beach.
So there we saw the dump with the Ultra Ball.
And there comes a Dusknoir. Sinister Hand will be coming into play, and this is the game changer in my eyes. This is going to allow Henry to rearrange all the damage on Darrell's board and just say, you know what? that thing has too much energy. Let's move the damage there and let's knock that out.
Right, and so over time we've sort of seen this strange mix. You see a few counters here and there. All of a sudden, he can move things at a whim, and it seems like...
More damage.
So while his hand might be smaller, he's actually using his own opponent's tools against him.
And wow, we just see Darrell pass the turn. That was a huge turn of events for Henry. Now look how much damage is just piling up on that board, and you can see just how quickly this spirals out of control.
Henry's so excited he can barely contain the cards in his hand.
Yeah, now he's down to 4 prizes just like that. And we see about 130 damage on the active, 70 on the bench, Darkrai. How is Darrell going to respond to this now?
Right, without being able to revive that Keldeo in any way, it's really going to hurt. If you can't get out of that special condition paralysis, it can really set you back. Now, interestingly enough, he doesn't have actually that much to draw, Henry. He's just get the Mewtwo, his 1 EX card.
Yeah, now we do see Mewtwo EX coming down, and Mewtwo was kind of the king of the format for a long time, and he kind of got kicked off his throne by Yveltal EX, whose Evil Ball is just a little bit better. But Mewtwo is still pretty good. X-Ball does 20 for each energy attached to both active Pokemon, so we may see that come into play.
Right. Mewtwo is 20 times, Yveltal 20 plus. So he's just getting an extra 20 that Mewtwo would have gotten. One difference, however, is that Mewtwo can use his X-Ball on just 1 energy card, a single double colorless.
Right. Now, Henry's trying to figure out, what do I go after here? And he's saying, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this Darkrai on the bench now. The Yveltal EX is poison, so damage is going to build up very quickly. So we're seeing a lot of clever moves by Henry Pryor. And you can see why he is one of the best players in the game right now.
Correct. He's using everything that he can to make sure that his opponent doesn't have very many options. Now, it is interesting because his opponent no longer has many Pokemon in play. Sandslammer isn't nearly as strong, but with that Burbank City Gym in play, he's getting that extra poison damage, making it a pretty viable move.
Yeah, now we do see another Hypnotoxic Laser from Darrell and the Muscle Band already, so we're going to see a Y Cyclone knockout. But the issue here is there's so much damage on his field already. We're going to see more poison and then another round of Sandslammer. So it's just, can Darrell avoid losing at this point? He's only down to 3 prizes. Henry just has to knock out 1 more Pokemon EX to win the game.
Right, this is going to get very, very close. Now, we saw he had no draw cards, just Max Potion double colorless, but he does have the double colorless, and with that, X-Ball has taken out Yveltal, despite Yveltal taking Mewtwo's throne in the format.
Wow, that was an incredible game from Henry. He played that perfectly. I mean, he drew a very, very good hand. He drew pretty much flawlessly throughout the game, and we saw Darrell's decision not to go for Garbodor. I wonder if he'll change that in the second game.
Right. It just seems like such a great ability to shut down your opponent's abilities. We saw almost all of Henry's knockouts, aside from that Mewtwo EX to clean things up, coming through either Sand Slammer or the ability to move things with Sinister Hand.
Absolutely. And we saw Darrell's own Burbank City Gym work against him quite a bit. And you see exactly why Excelgor is such a strong card.
Now, one thing with Henry that I noticed is when he got that Mewtwo EX, he actually discarded his entire hand.
Mm-hmm.
So he either counted and knew that it was likely he would find double colorless energy in his prizes, or he just knew that there were enough left in the deck where he could have that out to close out the game, even if he lost his valuable Flygon.
Yeah, he's a smart kid, so I'm going to say he probably knew a couple were prized, and he said, you know what, I got a good chance of just getting the double colorless off the prizes, and hey, look what happened, an X-Ball for the game.
So just like that, Henry Pryor takes game 1. Darrell Moreno is going to try and even the series. We play best 2 out of 3 here, and so after both players shuffle up, we're going to see yet another game.
Yeah, now this is best 2 out of 3, 75-minute time limit with an additional 3 turns if we do hit that time limit. So it's the first person to 2 wins wins the series and advances to the top 8.
And one interesting thing about best 2 out of 3 is typically you want to play a fast deck just to make sure that you can close things out before time is called. Mm-hmm. But even though Henry ran what you would typically call a slower deck, there's a lot of evolving, a lot of waiting, he ran through that game fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't take much time at all, but that just speaks to how fast of a player Henry is. I think he's actually the fastest player in the game, at least I would think so, and he has no problem finishing games.
So here we go. Darrell has already set up, and did Henry mulligan, or has he just not yet drawn?
Looks like he's taking his time shuffling. So he's finally drawing his first hand.
Speaking of mulligan.
No, there you go. Looks like you can see the future.
Perhaps like the psychic type Mewtwo.
All right, so Henry will shuffle in and then draw a fresh 7 cards until he draws a basic Pokemon, and then Darrell will be able to draw an extra card at the beginning of his turn since Henry did mulligan there.
Correct. You need a basic Pokemon in order to start a Pokemon game, and so without one, your opponent gets sort of a tiny little prize token, being able to draw just one extra card each time.
Sure, and those watching on Twitch TV, be sure to change the settings if you're seeing, the stream isn't as high quality as you'd like. You can change it to high definition. This is a high definition stream, so definitely do that.
Correct, and especially with a game like the Pokemon trading card game, you definitely want to see all those small details. So if you haven't already and your internet can handle it, crank that baby out the max.
Absolutely, especially with Darrell's beautiful full art cards. I noticed pretty much every card in his deck is foil in some capacity.
He is definitely rocking the bling right now.
All right, so we do begin the game with a Hypnotoxic Laser. That's going to poison this Trapinch, and it looks like if he flipped heads, it would have been asleep, but nope, just poison right now.
And yet another one. So it seems he might be playing that Professor Juniper card out of his hand, so why not play everything you've got before you have to use it?
Yeah, he's going to discard his whole hand. Looks like he actually has a pretty ugly hand to get rid of. A couple of those Dark Patch. Those are really great resources to accelerate your energy, and he has to throw away 2 of them right now. Not a great start.
Definitely brutal. Now, one thing about Professor Juniper is it discards your entire hand, but you get a new hand of 7. One thing you typically want to do in these dark focus decks is discard basic darkness energy because you can recycle them with the Dark Patch.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is going to put a lot of pressure on Henry to get a Tropical Beach this turn, and no, just like that, the game is over.
That hand was unplayable.
Wow.
Just nothing. 3 Flygon. Great for poker. Terrible for Pokemon.
Absolutely. He had nothing. He had no basic Pokemon, no way to stop the poison in the Burbank City Gym from knocking him out. So we saw that long, drawn-out first game, and then that's the beauty of Pokemon. The next one can just end on the second turn, or the first turn even.
So just like that, Darrell Moreno, in just 1 turn, or 1.5, has even the series. We're back to 1-1.
Yeah, he's that good.
Now, it's funny, if my memory does recall, that Darrell has actually suffered several victories like that in the past when he was trying to claim the national championship title.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that too much, but yeah, he is, of course, a runner-up at the U.S. National Championships. His finals match, as he'll like to tell you, didn't last very long, so he's definitely hoping to get back there and kind of avenge his loss and become national champion this year.
So it was certainly a little bit of irony there that he was able to grab one of those wins for himself. But just like that, both these players will have plenty of time for Game 3.
Absolutely, and we saw that all because of what I feel like is the strongest card in the game, that Hypnotoxic Laser. Just being able to poison, combined with the Burbank City Gym, that's just 30 damage for an item card, basically. So it's incredible, and we saw that 2-card combo just won him the game immediately.
Just brutal. He didn't even need to attack. Now the player going first, with the rule change, can't attack, but you saw he just placed 3 damage counters immediately between turns, just from an item.
All right, so it looks like the fortunes have been reversed here. Now Darrell will be the one to mulligan, which means Henry will get an extra card. And we'll have to see, with Henry going first, will he get as good of a hand as he got in the first game, or will he get another dud like he got in the second game?
I'm sure Henry is hoping that he has shuffled thoroughly. Now, Flygon is a great card. It's certainly the heart of the deck, but you don't want to see 3 in your opening hand.
No, not like that at least. All right, so we're going to shuffle up again, and we're going to get a brand new hand of 7 cards, and we'll see what happens here.
I believe Darrell's just confirming the process for do I shuffle or set up between each of these mulligans.
The rules are constantly changing in Pokemon, so it's always nice to double check.
Right, so when you're a veteran, sometimes you're playing by those old classic rules, and then all of a sudden, they change just a little bit.
Exactly.
So here we do see basics. It's not another mulligan, and we are about ready to kick this off. Game 3 in the top 16 for the Masters Trading Card Game U.S. National Championships.
And again, there's a lot on the line here. The winner of this gets a fully paid trip and an invitation to the World Championships in Washington, D.C., so there is a ton on the line here.
Is that right? The entire top 8 gets a paid trip?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for the Masters division.
Certainly a great prize. So there is, like you said, a lot on the line.
Right, so we do see Henry with that Skyla opening. He'll be able to search for any trainer card. This is a very strong opening. He'll be able to search for probably a Tropical Beach, and that'll allow him to fill his hand up to end his turn.
Now, interestingly, I noticed he started the Mewtwo EX. So, while not necessarily a core part of his combos, certainly a heavy hitter to begin with.
Yeah, I guess he just kind of put it out there since it's a big body. It can buy him some time, maybe. And, if it ever gets in trouble, he has those float stones to be able to retreat into Flygon. It's always a little nerve-wracking putting those little 60 HP basics up against those giant Evil Tall EX or Darkrai EX that can go down. I mean, they can go down as soon as the first turn with the right combination of cards. So Mewtwo, he's a little tougher to take down.
So he gets that Tropical Beach. By ending his turn, he gets to draw his full hand up to 7, which is definitely not a bad start.
Ouch.
Once again, history repeats itself.
This is an even worse start for Darrell. Discarding 2 Dark Patch and his Dowsing Machine, which could have gotten him a Dark Patch. Now he's just down a lot of resources.
He just can't seem to catch those darks to discard off his Junipers.
I guess not. Now we do see an Ultra Ball here, and once
What?
again,
Yeah.
he is opting to discard the Garbodor. What do you think about this?
You know, by playing this matchup, I'm a very, very big fan of the Flygon deck, and normally the last thing I want to see is my opponent set up a Garbodor, get the Garbotoxin ability, and just shut my whole deck strategy down.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if he actually tested this and found out, you know what, if I just go with an Eviltal, a Darkrai, and a Keldeo, these can carry me the whole way. Or maybe he's, I don't know, I guess that's kind of what he's come to the conclusion.
He certainly came close in game 1, but that critical turn where he lost his ability to use the Keldeo really just shut him off from those options.
Yeah, I think he's very afraid of that Excelgor. And that's kind of what he's fearing the most here. And he's saying, I don't want to shut off my own Keldeo's rush in with Garbodor. I want to be able to get out of that paralysis. So maybe that's what's going through his head.
So here, Darrell just sort of trying to set up. He can't normally attack immediately because he does need 2 different kinds of energy, one colorless and one dark, to use Evil Ball. But
yeah, something interesting is we've actually seen no non-EX attackers come down for him yet. He's used nothing but Eviltal EX, Darkrai EX, and Keldeo EX. He does run a card like Absol, which could be useful in this kind of a matchup. We just haven't seen it come down yet.
Right. And so we do see, again, he's just opting to use Henry's Tropical Beach, which can certainly hurt. Sometimes when you have a supporter card, it can be used against you. We saw in game 1, his Burbank City Gym definitely hurt him more than it hurt Henry.
Yeah, stadium cards are very unique in that both players get to take advantage of them. They just kind of sit out in the middle for the entire game. And so we saw, like you said, the Burbank come back to bite Darrell in the first game, and now he's using the Tropical Beach to say, you know what, I didn't have a very good hand, but now I do, thanks.
So here we see yet another Skyla. It is a supporter card. You can only play 1 of those per turn, and it allows you to search your deck for any trainer card and put that into your hand.
All right, we see an Ultra Ball, so he'll be able to discard 2 cards and search for any Pokemon. We'll see. It doesn't look like he has that rare candy in his, or maybe
oh, no,
he does.
I do see it. It's the 3rd card from his left, just barely.
Yeah, so we can see another strong start here, another turn 2 Flygon coming out, and that is the best start he can hope for.
Now, did he have a Float Stone or a way to move that Mewtwo? That I was not able to see.
I think he had a double colorless energy if he wanted to retreat like that. Otherwise, I didn't see one, but we'll have to see.
It's certainly one way to do it. One thing that you might want to hesitate slightly for, though, is you only do run 4 of those energies, so it might be 1 less for the Excelgor in the late game.
So we do see the rare candy into Flygon there. That allows him to skip a stage from Trapinch all the way to Flygon, and looks like he's just going to use that Tropical Beach and fill up to 7.
Okay, so he's got the Flygon. He figures, you know, maybe this Mewtwo eventually falls. Flygon can come up, start wrecking a little havoc, slamming some sand.
Yeah, that's what he does best. All right, now we do see that double colorless onto the Eviltal EX, so we'll start to see some big attacks here pretty soon.
Right. He has that Y Cyclone where it's a neat attack. You can move energy from the active onto one of your bench, so you can preserve energy while still dealing a decent amount of damage on 2 energy.
Yeah, or you can do the Evil Ball attack, which is more commonly used. It does 20 plus 20 for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So it's Mewtwo's X-Ball plus 20. Not bad. And that adds up very quickly, as you might imagine.
Right. So both players are now looking at their new hand of 6 cards. And Darrell decides to play, it looks like Professor's Letter? Or did he discard that?
He's playing it right now.
Oh, he's just putting it below the N. Professor's Letter allows you to search your deck and get 2 basic energy cards. Just put them right into your hand.
Yeah, so this is just a very good card. Turns 1 card into 2 energy. A very powerful card. Very good in combination with a card like Ultra Ball, which allows you to discard 2 cards, and then you would be able to Dark Patch those energy right onto your Pokemon. Unfortunately, he discarded a lot of those Dark Patch early on.
Right, he did. Unfortunately, he did not have this before playing Professor Juniper to get those Darks in.
And it looks like he's just going to go with the Evil Ball. That should do 100 damage, and Mewtwo is going to continue to take that poison that it took from the Hypnotoxic Laser.
All right, so this Mewtwo is just on the verge of remaining in the game.
Yeah. One of the things I think Darrell might want to do, if he has some way to use a Lysander or a Pokemon catcher to bring up that Dusclops or Dusknoir at some point, that is really the heart of this deck. If you take that away, take away the Sinister Hand, all of a sudden there's just a bunch of random damage counters on your Pokemon and no real way to take advantage of them.
Right. The heart and soul of this deck, now, while it definitely runs on Flygon and Sandslammer, is that Dusknoir. It moves those counters. If you can't move the counters, you're just dealing mediocre damage around. It's not really going to cut it. And
Absolutely.
Henry only has one in play. I've seen sometimes players will try and get that second Duskull down just in case. He does
Right.
not have that here.
Yeah, it looks like he's favoring just powering up kind of an army back here. He has an Excelgor powered up. He has a Shelmet with a double colorless, but there we do see
Very
the
quickly,
knockout.
just a simple Y Cyclone with Yveltal moves that Darkness Energy back to Darkrai, and he takes 2 prizes because he knocked out Henry's only EX Pokemon.
Yep, but the Sand Slammer has begun. There's 1 damage counter on each of Darrell's Pokemon, and now we do see that Dusknoir comes in play. We'll see how long it stays out there. If it does stay on board, you have to think Henry's at a big advantage here.
Correct. And so he's got Dusknoir in play. He's got Flygon. I see a rare candy. It looks like he's opting for things to pitch with Ultra Ball, so he can get yet another Flygon. And the combo is beginning to emerge.
Yes, it's slow, but once it comes out, it's pretty steady, and eventually, like we saw in that first game, it didn't look like much, and then eventually you were like, oh, hey, now there's enough damage to knock everything out.
Now, interestingly, we see him pitch one of his Duskull. He does have the bench space for it, so maybe just thinking, well, I'd rather have maybe another Excelgor to continue this combo.
Yeah, it looks like he's just not afraid. He's just saying, you know what, I don't think you play any way to get at by Dusknoir. I'm not really afraid. I'm going to end you down to a low hand size anyway, and we'll see what happens.
So definitely a little bit of risky play, but it could pay off for him if he decides to preserve valuable resources instead of just the basic Duskull. We shall see.
Yeah, it's crazy. Look at the contrast of boards we have here. We have Darrell's side, just 3 big basic Pokemon. And on Henry's side, we have 5 evolutions, 2 stage 1s and 3 stage 2 Pokemon. When's the last time you saw that?
Right, and that's sort of the beauty of the Flygon, Dusknoir, Excelgor deck, is because you're playing Tropical Beach and not attacking and just setting up. You can get so many evolutions in play, more than many Pokemon decks of all time have ever been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we do see that deck and cover that's going to do 50, and then plus 10 for the poison, 10 more for the Sand Slammer, so 70 total damage. And I mean, the Sand Slammer has begun. The slow accumulation of damage has started.
Right, and once again, we do see that Darrell has his out. He has the Keldeo that he can rush in, retreat for free by using it in conjunction with Darkray's Dark Cloak. However, it's only so long before he has enough damage counters accumulated, and Henry can just move them all, knock out the Keldeo, and remove that option entirely.
Absolutely. Now we'll see. This will be a big turn if he can knock out that Flygon. He already has the Muscle Man and enough energy. If he attaches 1 more, he can use Y Cyclone. All he needs is that Verbank City Gym to finish it off, but his hand doesn't look very good at all.
No, it doesn't. And once more, I want to remind you guys, because there's so many damage counters in play and things are getting complicated, as always, if you've noticed the stream might seem a little pixelated for you, there is always the option in the bottom right-hand side of the player where you can change that quality and crank it all the way up to best.
Yeah, we have a high definition stream, and hey, who doesn't want to see these beautiful cards in action? All right, so we'll have to see now, is he going to use Tropical Beach to end his turn, or will he just kind of attack into that Flygon? Neither of them are very good options since we know Henry runs that max potion to heal off any damage.
And I believe I saw 2 copies of it in his hand.
Ouch. So does he Tropical Beach fill up his hand and just allow his Pokemon to get hit with more sand in the face from Flygon, or does he attack into it? It looks like he's just going to fill his hand up to 7.
Right, and it definitely is not looking good for Darrell. He has that Keldeo, and actually one interesting thing with it, being in the active position, is it is weak to grass.
Yeah, wow. I'm very surprised he actually left that in the active position. Now Excelgor can actually trap that in place and paralyze it. It can't rush in if it's active. This could be a big turning point in the game.
This could be the nail in his coffin.
I
Now,
think so.
Not only are you leaving that Keldeo trapped, I do not believe Darrell runs a second one so that he could rush in and save one of the Keldeos. So he doesn't have that option. And it's taking even more damage than usual, ×2. So that's 100 base instead of 50 for deck and cover.
And let's not forget, if he wants to, he can just kind of trap that there as long as he wants. If he can continue to use deck and cover, just moving the damage off with Sinister Hand and just saying, you know what, you're stuck. I'm just going to keep piling damage here and paralyzing you, and eventually I'll move damage everywhere and get one big turn where I take all 6 prizes at once.
Right. He could be potentially stuck forever for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And Henry only needs 2 more EX knockouts to secure... Oh, sorry. He needs all 3 EX knockouts. It's on
Yeah.
Darrell's side of the board. However, with that kind of damage, it won't be long before all 3 of these fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, weak to grass, it's going to be 100 damage from that deck and cover, and he has another Shelmet, so he's going to be able to do this in consecutive turns. Here we go.
Yep, he's got Shelmet. Shelmet's got double colorless. If he can just keep setting this up, deck and cover, deck and cover, deck and cover, move all of those damage counters away from the Keldeo so it never gets knocked out, Darrell is just stuck.
This reminds me of last year. What's happening here?
Right. History just might be repeating itself. And this is why Excelgor and Dusknoir just make such a powerful combo.
Absolutely. There's just such synergy there. Excelgor shuffling itself back in the deck so Flygon can promote itself and then use Sand Slammer in between turns. And wow, we finally see the Trubbish come down.
I really would have expected to see that Trubbish be a constant sort of landmark in this matchup.
Absolutely.
But seeing it this late, it just might be too late to shut off those abilities.
Yeah, at this point, you got to think he's digging for maybe a switch or some way to get that Pokemon out of the active position. I don't know. It's going to be a tough turn here. If he stays paralyzed this turn, that's so much damage is going to just build up on his board. And we could just see 1 or 2 more turns. Henry could be advancing to the top 8.
Right. There's already hundreds of damage on his side. And so Henry can just move that at a whim, and while some of these EX Pokemon have a high HP, 170.
Oh, no, once again, he has to use Tropical Beach, and that's just more and more damage piling up.
Now, that Keldeo, while it seems like it's just about to be knocked out, Henry's played this matchup, he knows, by keeping that Keldeo alive in the active spot, but stuck through paralysis, can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the damage right now. There's 160 on the active, 90 on the bench, Eviltal EX, 80 on the bench, Darkrai. That Trubbish may actually end up working against Darrell here, as now that'll just be more damage for Henry to put in play with Sand Slammer. So I think in just 1 or 2 attacks, this game might actually be over.
Right. Now, one thing we do want to see for is Henry can sort of claim this game indefinitely if he can set up another Shelmet, maybe attach a double to it, and have a way to reach for that Excelgor.
Right. Now, it looks like he's kind of afraid of that Trubbish now. He's saying, you know what, I don't even want to bother with Garbodor coming out. I don't want to bother with my abilities being shut off. Let's just move 6 damage counters over there. Sand Slammer will do an additional 10 between turns and finish it off. That way I don't have to worry about that pesky Garbodor.
And that sort of shows why I'm so surprised that Trubbish wasn't down. Henry definitely fears it. He doesn't have the replacement Dusknoir. He discarded his Duskull. He needs that ability. It's crucial.
Now we see, another Shelmet is
There
coming
it
down.
is.
And does he have another?
Double.
Wow, another double colorless energy. We could be 1 or 2 turns away from crowning Henry the winner here.
It definitely does not look good for Mr. Moreno.
No, not at all. We see that Keldeo EX is paralyzed and poisoned once again. Trubbish falls to the Sand Slammer. Eviltal EX and Darkrai EX just get more and more damage. There's almost not enough dice out there to keep track of that damage.
Right, and so we've seen Henry has just taken 1 prize. He's technically, according to the game state, losing. But when you see how much damage is in play, he really is just 1 turn away from sweeping it all, grabbing all 5 of those at once.
Absolutely, that's just the strength of Dusknoir's Sinister Hand. One of the most powerful abilities in the game, just being able to rearrange damage whenever you want, created this kind of lock where really that Keldeo is stuck as long as Henry can use deck and cover.
So sort of out of desperation, we saw Juniper. Darrell's just dropping a bunch of resources, desperately looking for something. He's benching more Pokemon, which means more Sand Slammers. It really is all down to whether or not Henry can grab that Excelgor and just drop that high amount of damage through a deck and cover on the Keldeo.
Absolutely. He already has that double colorless. Can he draw an Excelgor to just finish off this game? This will be the big turn.
I certainly would not have expected in this matchup that it would be Darrell using the Tropical Beach more than Henry.
And there's the Excelgor. That means we're going to see Sinister Hand moving
Look
damage
at all that
over to
damage.
those Pokemon EX, deck and cover.
1, 2, 3. He just took 6 prizes there. He didn't even need to. He just needed 5.
And incredible. That's why this Flygon Excelgor Dusknoir deck is so powerful, and Henry Pryor will advance to